This video is a sample from the Secret Guitar Teacher Interactive course, The 5 Main Elements of Music. The 5 main elements of music. Element number 2, scales. Section 2.4, the major blues scale. Section Introduction. The minor blues scales present what is for most guitar students the easiest way in to learn to play improvised lead guitar. But at first glance their use does appear to be somewhat limited. They're great for using over most blues tunes, and they also work well over minor key ballads. However, this leaves out the type of song that for most of us is probably going to be the commonest category that we're likely to want to play along to, the major ballad. The first weapon of choice for most guitar players when playing over a major ballad is the major blues scale. In its basic one-octave form, this sounds like this. Contrast that sound to the minor blues scale. And I think most of us can hear the difference in terms of sad and happy. But maybe we also hear it as blues and country, especially when we use that sort of rhythmic emphasis typical of those two distinctively different genres. The good news is that due to a phenomenon known as relativeness, you have already learned the patterns you need to play the major blues scale. This is because the patterns made by the notes of the major blues scale are identical to the patterns made by the notes of the minor blues scale. So, in effect, in putting in all the work you did to learn the patterns for the minor blues scale, you've got 2 for the price of 1. Let's take a closer look at how this comes about. We'll start by labelling the notes of the E minor blues scale with their note names. Now, let's lay these notes out in a straight line in ascending order. We can see that in our first position pattern, we get 2 complete octaves of the scale plus 1 spare G note left over. But if we take exactly the same pattern notes and instead of playing them from E to E, making that the key note, we play them from G to G, making G the key note, we can hear the major blues scale sound, and we can see that exactly the same set of notes gives us 2 complete octaves of the G major blues scale, with a spare E note at the bottom end of the scale. This can be quite confusing, but luckily there is a simple trick that helps us apply this. It's called the pinky trick. Take any first position pattern from the blues scale and play it emphasizing the note that falls under the index finger on the bottom string, and you hear the minor blues scale. So that was A minor, here's B minor. Here's D minor. Here would be F sharp minor. and so on. But take any first position blues scale pattern and instead emphasize the note that falls under your pinky on the bottom string. And you hear the major blues scale, in this case in C. Here you'd hear it in D. Here you'd hear it in F. And down here we'd have heard it in A. And so on. Don't worry, you'll get plenty of opportunity to practice this as we work our way through this section of the course. For now, let's take a quick look at one way we might try to apply this. Let's say we want to jam along to the chords of Knocking on Heaven's Door, and we know it's in the key of G. If we try using the minor blues scale in G, we quickly hear that it doesn't really work very well. So instead of placing our index finger on the G, here at fret 3, we instead place our pinky on that note, measure down. Our index finger is now in the open position, effectively playing the note E. So this tells us that in order to use the blues scale patterns in the key of G major, we use the patterns we would have chosen for the key of E minor. And we can immediately hear the effectiveness of that decision. So from this we learn that G major is the relative major key of E minor. Or we can state it in reverse and say that the key of E minor is the relative minor of G major. Now we'll be going into this whole subject at much greater depth further on in the course. But for now, using the pinky trick is a great first step to getting your head around this in a practical way. Using the major blues scale is slightly harder than using the minor blues scale. So you may find it takes a bit of practice to make it work for you. But on this section of the course, you'll be getting plenty of hands-on practice with using this scale. So don't worry if it doesn't seem to go right from day one. We have a number of methods to help you become ever more familiar with using the patterns in this way. We'll be revisiting 2-octave and 3-octave diagonal runs, and we'll also be applying the caged system of octave patterns to help us really get to grips with the relationship between these two types of scale. I'll also be showing you some simple ways to convert the licks you already play when playing blues music and converting them to make similar licks work over country sounding tunes. With these two distinctively different applications of the blues scale patterns, you can actually play along to more or less anything. But it's not always obvious exactly which application to use when, and this is something we'll be exploring directly on this section of the course. We'll also take a look at how to expand out from the major blues scale to play melodic solos and integrate the other notes from the major scale in an intuitively simple way. Towards the end of this section, we're going to take our first look at chord-specific approaches to improvising, using different blues scales to play over each chord in a sequence. This is something that can make you a much more versatile and original sounding guitarist almost overnight. This section culminates in understanding the concept of using the whole system of blues scales as a sort of safety net, something you can always fall back on when more difficult approaches to improvising that you might learn later break down for you sometimes under pressure of performance. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you'd really like to maximize your potential as a guitar player, click on the link in the description below to the Secret Guitar Teacher site. Here you can sign up for a 30-day trial free of charge and without obligation. We won't even ask you for your credit card number.